So welcome. It's 4 o'clock. I think let's just be useful and start on time. If you are there in front of your computer, would you put your cameras on? I think that would be lovely. So welcome. My name is Carolyn Cowan, and we're meeting for a Q&A about Kundalini Global as a teacher training, as a 220-hour level 1 internationally certified by Yoga Alliance yoga teacher training. And so there's quite a lot going on today. We have had well over 100 people sign up, but some people have said that they'll watch it online. This will be recorded. But those of you who are here, thank you. You have quite a decent sized cohort of teachers here, which is lovely. People who've actually qualified, certified, done the training and qualified and certified. So they're going to be talking about different aspects of their experience of doing the training. So my name's Carolyn Cowan, and I've been teaching yoga for over 25 years. And why did I start Kundalini Global is really the first thing I think that needs to be said, because it's fundamental to the experience. And that is that I really felt that yoga needed updating to the 21st century on multiple levels. I felt that yoga has gradually become a very exclusive practice, and very much because of social media, this sort of yoga body and Lululemon and the politics of all of it and the cults of thought. I mean, we're living in a time where cults of thought have gone completely crazy. You know, we're very, very polarized in how we think about everything. And so I thought it'd be very interesting to make, for me, what needed to be done was to create a form of yoga that was inclusive. So this is really important to me, that it's inclusive of body type, inclusive age, gender identity, gender preference, inclusive of religious, cultural, and social beliefs, and that it became a wider, more widely available process. It's become very compressed, and with so much of my experience in my background in yoga was so focused on Sikhism and Hinduism to the exclusion of all other belief systems, I really disagreed with that. And something that I don't often talk about, but I think it's relevant here. I actually got literally drummed out. I got thrown out of Kundalini Yoga in its previous iterations, actually for the insanity of the fact that they didn't want me to be gay, which I just found totally insane. I mean, what the fuck has that got to do with yoga? I didn't understand that. So that was one aspect of why I started Kundalini Global. And then another thing that led me to start Kundalini Global is that technology is a wonderful thing. Science, I mean, I understand that you might be a complete Luddite and you may not believe in science. Lots of people don't at this point. We have this fantastic polarization with anti-vaxxers and all of that stuff. I'm not getting into that here, but science has discovered something utterly stunning in the last 10 years. I'm a trauma therapist. That is my job. That's what I do for my day job. I'm a trauma therapist 3 to 4 days a week. That's what I work with, is the traumatic body. And therefore, I specialize in the vagus nerve, I specialize in addiction, self-harming disorders, eating disorders, body dysmorphia, and then all the personality disorders. And of course, who comes to yoga? All the people who have all these issues. And are they being addressed? No, they're not. And they're not being addressed at all with the relationship to the traumatic and the traumatized body. So I wanted to realign yoga. I wanted to create a form of yoga that was specifically focused on, first of all, helping the client to learn to regulate. So actually something comes before that. As a woman, I identify as a woman. I wanted to create a form of yoga where the guru disappeared. I don't want to be a guru. I'm not a guru. I have no interest in being a guru. I'm not a guru. I wanted to remove the guru. So I'm a teacher. The person that comes to class is the client. I wasn't interested in that guru structure. I'm not interested in it personally at all. But what happens when the client comes and sits on the mat is a magical thing. So everybody who's qualified as a teacher here, raise your hand if you're a KG qualified teacher. There's lots of them. We've only been going for 2 years. And lots of people have agreed to come and speak today. I actually asked if they could, because it's working, it's good. But when a client sits on the mat, the first thing that we do, and we're going to do it in a moment, the first thing that we do, the main structure of a Kundalini Global class, is to go all the way through breath work and posture from a state of presence, which means that the stress system is released. So all of these teachers that you see here are specialists in neuroplasticity, the vagus nerve, the sympathetic system, the parasympathetic system. That's the basis. And they actually start their teacher training with one fundamental question, which is, can you regulate? It's a really big question. It's a horrible question, because within 5 minutes, the first question is, can you regulate? Within 5 minutes of doing the teacher training, literally every single person can say yes. And then the whole of the rest of the teacher training is, why are you not regulating? You need to regulate. You want to go back and recognize that you can change how you feel. So the moment that we open a class, the client, their state of being is completely transformed, because we understand how the stress system works. Where that gets really interesting is that I always start, certainly as a teacher, with breath work, because that's the next way to reset the stress system, so that by the time you come into posture, moving and doing yoga as we understand it in the West, you're experiencing yourself all the way through in a state of presence, or you're certainly heading towards that. Some people come and they're so stressed they can't stay present, and that's fine, but they learn to do so. And so the whole point of Kundalini Global in creating a new form of training was really to recognize that science, technology, our understanding of the body has moved on so far in the last 10 years that that really needed to be addressed. And we are living in accelerated times, and we're living in a time where the big guns, you know, Amazon, social media, the news, Netflix, all of those massive, massive companies have turned us into products, and they have discovered that we have a fundamental flaw in our brains. They have discovered the most basic fundamental flaw in our brains, which is that we can be wound up like a top and sent off our heads in stress in a nanosecond. And the problem is this addiction to being stressed is extremely tantalizing and seductive. And of course, through the whole of the last 2 years with COVID, everybody's stress systems ramped up hugely. So actually, did we ever need Kundalini Global? And was this the perfect time to create Kundalini Global? Yes, the universe was very kind. Everything came together, and here we are. So I'm going to hand over in a minute, and I'm going to do two things. I'm going to, first of all, do an opening stretch, and let's do a breath. Let's just check in, do a Star Trek check-in. How are you feeling? Are you bored? Are you tired? Are you sleepy? Are you a bit nervous because you've got a question that you really want to ask? Are you about to speak? Because you've got lots of people here who are going to speak. Just check in. And then sit up, sit up. It doesn't matter if you're on a chair, just widen your knees, hook your ankles. If you're sitting cross-legged on the floor, that's great. Pull your arms, pull your hands apart and make them thrum, a vibration. Keep breathing, raise your chest. Keep breathing, raise your chin, and then heaven opens as you raise your armpits. When you get to the top, your arms are straight. Perhaps your eyes can close. Take a long, deep inhale. Hold that breath. Turn as far as you can to one side and exhale. Come back to the center. Inhale. Stretching up, turn to the other side and exhale. And if your eyes haven't closed, perhaps they can close now. Roll your shoulders, bring your hands either into prayer pose or crossed on your chest, but notice something. You may not need to breathe. There may be no thoughts. You have literally reset your stress system, and we begin to open a Kundalini Global class. It's always done in the same way. Inhale. Hold the breath and squeeze. Anus, sexual organs and belly. Flare the ribs. Tighten under the ribs. Tighten the neck. Drop the chin. These are the body locks. Long, deep exhale. Holding the breath out. Squeezing. Anus, sexual organs and belly. Flare the ribs. Tighten under the ribs. Tighten the neck. Drop the chin. Long, deep inhale. Holding the breath and pulling the locks, tightening anus, sexual organs and belly, flare the ribs, tighten under the ribs, tighten the neck, drop the chin, and for the last time, exhale, and you're constantly resetting. You're holding and containing the stress system. Inhale, holding the breath for a moment, and then bowing forward to whatever you relate to as an internal divine source or force. So noticing that, inhaling up and bowing forward to whatever you relate to as an external source or force. Inhaling up and bowing forward to finding out about a very specific type of yoga in challenging times. And inhale Don't open your eyes, just check in. You've just reset. If you go into a yoga practice from this place, it's a very different experience. And so I still have two things I want to say. One is notice that invitation. Please feel free to open your eyes now. Notice that invitation, the radical inclusivity of whatever you relate to as an internal divine source or force, whatever you relate to as an external source or force. And actually, John Russell, who's on my screen, he's in the middle, he's going to later on talk about that radically inclusive aspect for Kundalini Global. So in my classes, you know, I will have Muslims, I will have Roman Catholics, I'll have all sorts of people having all sorts of different experiences based on the posture and the breath work that isn't in any way defined by me. So that's an important aspect for me, is to become more radically inclusive, because it's very lovely actually to have men who have done the teacher training, and particularly to have men here, which is very lovely. So there are also male teachers now coming out. The other thing I wanted to show you is I wrote the book all the way from the beginning. This is the very beautiful Kundalini Global Teacher Training Manual, and it's got over 200 pages. This is just the theory manual, but every single page has been rewritten. I mean, there's nothing in here that hasn't been written by me and right from scratch. So it really is a rewriting of the yogic process from a radically inclusive place, including a very large amount about adjustments, body types, religion, gender identity, addressing those issues. So I'm very happy to answer all kinds of questions. But what I think I'd like to do at this point is actually to hand over to Carrie, who is right next to me on my screen. And Carrie is running this program with me. And Carrie is going to be the MC, the master, the mistress, the maiden. I don't know, what do you want to call yourself? The madam. The madam.
I'd like to be the madam of ceremony, please.
The madam of ceremonies. And so why don't we get some teachers who've qualified and who are here and agreed to speak. Everybody's got a different subject. And actually what's really lovely is most of them have asked to speak on what they're going to speak about because of their belief system with it. So where are we going, Carrie? So Carrie is a certified teacher.
I am indeed, a very proud one too. Before we're going to move on to Sarah, Sarah's going to speak next, but just new people have joined since we said this before. Feel free to type a question into the chat, or after Sarah, you'll have an opportunity to put your hand up if you want to speak. And if you want to ask a question, but you don't want everyone to know who asked the question, you can message me privately. And now I will hand over to my very excellent colleague, Sarah Jane Edwards.
Hello, hello. Are you going to spotlight me? Because Carolyn's on the screen. Hello, everyone. So I am speaking just for a few minutes, which, believe me, is quite difficult for me, on the topic of how doing the Kundalini Global Teacher Training helped prepare me to step out beyond it as a teacher. And I'd never taught yoga before at all. I'd never taught anything before at all, before I came to the KG training. And I walked in on the first day of the first module, absolutely terrified like a little mouse who was so nervous, and thought, actually, that it was probably quite beyond me to stand in front of a room and hold the space and lead people through a practice that I was completely in love with. I'd been in love with yoga and with Kundalini yoga for a long time. And to say that it prepared me would be an enormous understatement. It prepared me more than I ever anticipated could be possible. And I think there's two arms to it, really, when I think about it. There's the practical aspect of it. So obviously, if you do intend to teach, then you want to know and feel that you will be prepared to know the topic, to be able to hold yourself well and feel that you're well informed on the, particularly, I think, the why are you doing certain practices? What are they doing to the physical body? What are the mechanisms at play in the mind? And the training goes above and beyond with that. We're trained, as you may expect, on the anatomy, which is interesting, fascinating. And Carolyn brought in the opening talk about the applied neuroscience, the understanding that we come to have of all the aspects of the stress system which, believe me, you will become an expert on it if you take on this training. One of the things that I know a lot of people who've done the training will agree on me that's really fascinating, and that clients in classes really enjoy and benefit from, is understanding things like the hormones at play with posture, which other styles of yoga very, very, very rarely talk about. And Kundalini Global teachers become expert at how we're changing hormonal flow within the body, that kind of thing. That's really interesting. It's an enormous topic. We learn a lot. And what I'm saying is we won't be on the training knowing our shit and having a huge amount of knowledge to share and a huge desire to share it. But I think when I think, how did the training prepare me as a teacher? I think the personal aspect of it is even bigger. So my self-confidence and my self-esteem grew exponentially throughout the training. We are really invited to almost deconstruct ourselves in terms of how we look at the world, how we experience ourselves, how we experience the world around us. And then we slowly begin to place it back together, and we come out of the training. I felt like I was a completely new person. I felt as a teacher that I had been educated on what was likely to come at me as a teacher. So how to maintain good boundaries with that. Carolyn brought in the idea of why people come to yoga. And we spend so much time reflecting on that. Why are people coming? We can begin a reflection on what that means is likely to come with clients, and therefore what we need to be aware as teachers in staying well bounded. And we have something which I'm sure will come up again called supervision, which is a fundamental aspect of being a Kundalini Global teacher. We're all supervised. That means it sounds like something that could be quite unpleasant, like you're being watched, but it's not that at all. It's having a safe space regularly in which we can bring what's coming up for us personally as teachers, where we're hitting our edges, where we're feeling uncomfortable as teachers, and having a safe space to explore that and reflect and learn from it and hold ourselves well as teachers. I don't know if I've already spoken for too long, so I'm going to stop and see if there's any questions. Did I talk for too long, Carrie?
Not at all. I think we could all feel like we could listen to you forever.
Okay.
But I think that what we're actually going to do is we're going to let everybody speak, and then we'll have questions at the end. I think we're enjoying it too much.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
So
thank you, everybody.
Everything you wanted to say?
Only that it's the best thing I've ever done in my whole life. And I love being a Kundalini Global teacher. And yeah, I'm very proud. Like Carrie said, I'm very proud to be a Kundalini Global teacher. And it's an epic roller coaster of a journey. And I'm still on it. I'm still on it 2 years later.
Thank you. That's lovely.
Thank you, Sarah. So we're going to move to Trish. Trish was here. And I think maybe something's happened with, oh, there's the lovely Trish.
Yeah.
There you are.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi. Sorry, I'm having some issues with seem to be having some issues with my camera. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Great. Thanks, Trish.
We're in the depths of the storm here. Well, I guess it's what they both said. Yeah, my name is Trish, and I was in the first round of the Kundalini Global training. And, you know, like Sarah just said, really, it was the best thing I ever did. So I got to Kundalini. I was teaching Kundalini since I started my first teacher training in 2012. And I had a very strong calling to retrain when Carolyn said she was developing Kundalini Global. And so I guess I have a view from both sides, really. And I guess if you're here, you're considering doing a Kundalini yoga training. For me, I mean, there's no comparison in what you really, the length and breadth and depth of the experience of the Kundalini Global training is really everything Carolyn just said, really. You know, I'm so much of a better person. I'm also so much of a better teacher because actually know I understand what's happening when I'm teaching. And so the delivery of the experience is so much more potent. So I understand why certain processes are what's really going on. And yeah, I've come out a much better informed teacher. I can hold the space in a way that feels, I don't know, much more authentic. So yeah, the experience of training to be a Kundalini Global teacher really is a huge journey, huge realizations. And I think Carolyn's, you know, where it's coming from the therapeutic background, the wisdoms that drop in this process are huge, and they certainly were for me. And teaching without the dogma is really, it's, you know, the difference between black and white, day and night. It's really, I mean, it was incredible timing, I guess, that this teacher training came along, when really there was a huge crumbling happening and a huge truth coming out in terms of what was really happening in the Kundalini Global world. And you know, there can only be new ways of teaching Kundalini. And I really feel like Kundalini Global is, it's soaked in authenticity, it's steeped in information. It's really, it's a life-changing experience. And it's a wonderful gift to be able to, you know, teach people how to regulate, how to really reconnect with themselves, how to be empowered and not handing that over to a guru, is really refreshing. And so it really feels like a practice that, you know, for me is a practice really for now. And, you know, the more Kundalini Global teachers there are in the world, the better the world will be. So sorry, I'm having some stormy moments with my camera, but yeah, that's over and out from me. And obviously I'm here if anybody has any questions, and lots of love.
Thank you, Trish. That was great. It's lovely to see you.
You too.
Very lovely. Thank you, Trish. That was lovely. Thank you.
To all of the Kundalini Global teachers, we had an order that we'd prepared, but Anya needs to, something's come up with her daughter, so she's asked to be shifted higher up. So if you were next on the list and are surprised, that's what's happened. So Anya's going to speak next, everybody.
Thank you. Forgive the sun shining on me. It's the last thing I expected after the storm we had. Hello, everybody. So my name is Anya Kelly, and I completed the second teacher training. So my background, I've been a yoga teacher of one form or other, but on the side for 20 years. But my background is really the financial world and being a financial analyst. I'm quite anal, and I'm very detail driven, and I'm quite used to having vast quantities of information and trying to distill them into an easy message for people. That's kind of what you do as an analyst. And I can't tell you how well Carolyn does that. So you could go off yourselves and you could take 50 books on every subject and read right through them and try to get to the core message, and then try to tie it all together into a cohesive story that people can really understand what's happening through the use of the breath and the body, what they're really doing. And there's so much going on out there in the world at the moment where people are talking about things like the stress system, mental health, the importance of getting through your body, the vagus nerve, the different hormones. The word serotonin's popping out of almost breakfast cereal ads now. In fact, I got something through on Instagram today where they were talking about getting a dopamine hit by wearing orange. So, you know, these things are in common parlance, but so often not well informed. And so what we are through this training is really well informed, because Carolyn has spent years gathering all this knowledge and information. And the way her head works, she's just an eater of fact. And she takes it all and gobbles it all up and puts it all together into a teacher training that we all get. That's quite amazing. I can't even express how much I understand, how much work went into it. But that's not all. Then she adds all her experience, as somebody mentioned, as a trauma analyst. And then she adds on top of that the icing of everything she herself has been through, which isn't to say she's telling us all her story, but you know that she's been through many, many different things, and every now and then there's a reference to something. And then she puts it all in a lovely package that allows you, in easy language, to pick your messages, to take to the class, to help other people to understand it, to build it in around the postures. And you can end up teaching something, and then you read the vibe of the room and you realize that actually, rather than treating this particular posture in one way, maybe the information you'll give around it is something else, and your story can go. And because she's packed so many layers of information into your mind, and particularly in asking for essays to be written and in asking for an exam at the end, that is unbelievably helpful in kind of ensuring that we ourselves bring that information into our own language rather than just someone else's. So that's kind of my thing, that I really feel that I have done no other training in all the different kinds of trainings that I've done where I've really felt that I'm eating a nugget that could burst out into being a room full of information. So that's what's available to you, you know, if you choose to do it.
Lovely, Anya. Thank you very, very much. Thank you.
So lovely, Anya, and lovely to see you. So we are now going to move on to the excellent April. Let me spotlight. Hi, April.
Hello. Thank you, Carrie. Hey, everyone. So I think I'll start by saying I haven't quite qualified. I just sent off my exam today, so fingers crossed I get the green light from Carolyn and can be, sharing this magical practice. But today I wanted to share with you guys, what I've been thinking about is how much this training really redefines what the yoga teacher is, hugely. And I mean, I think if you asked me some of the questions at the start, I'd have different answers to that I do now. And I didn't realise how many cults of thoughts I'd actually created around what a yoga teacher should be, do, look like, so on. But it had been containing me into this little box, and I had done a training before this, but I kind of was hitting a wall, like not really sure how to express myself and how to be the yoga teacher that I really wanted to be. And what this training does is really make you think for yourself. The invitation to question everything, question yourself, the invitation to think for yourself. So as everyone's mentioned, we're given so much information on this training, but we're also given so much space to actually ask ourselves a lot of questions and decide for ourselves who we are and what we want to be. And that's really something special, because there's not many, there's definitely not any trainings I've been in where I've been given the opportunity to say, wait a minute, what is it? What is your gift? What is your gold? What are you bringing to the table? And not just having a lot of things shoved down your throat. This is what you're going to teach, this is how you're going to teach it, so on, so on. So this training really gives you the opportunity to be the teacher you want to be. And I think there's just this impeccable balance that Carolyn gives us of sharing respect and reverence to a lot of these ancient magical things that she's teaching us, balanced with rebellion. And I think it's amazing. I think we should all have badges that says Rebel Yoga Club, to be honest, because that's kind of what it is. We are this new Rebel Yoga Club. And when we really start to learn, the universe is constantly expanding. The universe is constantly in motion and changing. And it does seem like insanity that, we stamped this thing that said yoga teacher. And for many years, it just didn't change. It stayed the same. And so Carolyn has come in and said, what is this insanity? What are we doing here? Let's change things up. Let's expand. Let's grow. And I think she's also gifting us the permission to do the same, to go on and keep on expanding and keep on growing and questioning and changing. And yeah, it's pretty awesome. I think that's it. I feel really excited about it. And yeah, if you are thinking of doing this training, I just think it's an amazing thing. And before I did this training, I don't think I would have said yes to coming on and speaking on something like this. So it's clearly given me a bit of a boost, and yeah, it's pretty cool. So thank you, guys. You're muted, Carolyn.
April, you have to hear it. That was very lovely. Thank you very, very much. Thank you. It was actually very interesting to hear your take. So thank you.
Thank you, April. It's lovely to see you. We're going to move on to Fidan. Lovely.
Hello. So I'm joining from Azerbaijan. So we really are global. And I want to talk about two things. So I graduated in the second cohort of the training. And I want to talk more about how much of an amazing life experience this is. Like, even if you don't become a yoga teacher, even if you don't teach, and when I say you don't become a yoga teacher, I mean, if you don't end up teaching, if you don't want to, it's just an amazing experience to go through. I think it's essential life training, because Sarah touched on it a bit, April touched on it a bit. You really do like look at your belief systems, your blockages, your cults of thought, and examine everything and start to see things, start to see yourself and see things in a different way. So it's just amazing, the space it creates and the authenticity that we're encouraged to just be fully ourselves every step of the way. We're encouraged to be 100% ourselves. And to me, that's like priceless. So what you'll feel on a personal level in terms of changes in positive changes in your confidence, creativity, in my experience, I definitely felt a huge increase in creativity. My courage, definitely, I felt like I definitely built courage over the training. It's just an amazing life experience. So I just want to shout it from the rooftops. If you're thinking about doing it, this is really a huge privilege to experience. So that's on the personal level. And then I know that a few people are probably wondering what it's like to do this training online, if you're thinking of doing it online, not in person. And honestly, Carolyn does such an amazing job of holding the space. I didn't feel tired of looking at the screen for like 12 hours a day for 4 days in a row. You know, I was excited to be in the energy field. For me, it was such a special container that it actually worked in my favor that it was on Zoom, because I had my space, my portal, and I loved it. So if you're concerned about the online aspect of it, don't be at all. It's really a beautiful experience. And yeah, I hope you join us.
Very lovely. Thank you, Fidan. And how lovely that you're in Azerbaijan. I love how global we are. Well done. Thank you.
So lovely to see you, Fidan. Thank you. And I wanted to add that somebody in our cohort had described Carolyn as a space holding ninja. And I think that is true. We're going to move on to the excellent John Russell.
Hey, beautiful people. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
My name's John. I'm a priest in the Church of England. Currently, I'm the Associate Rector at St James's Piccadilly in London. Next month, I move to the London Jesuit Centre to join the spirituality team there. I completed the first KG training in 2020, and now I teach it as part of my priestly ministry. I signed up for Level 1 training with a particular purpose in mind. I was working as a Christian priest. I was interested in using yoga as part of that, and I'd seen a couple of people trying to combine Hatha yoga with Christian spirituality, but it was quite clunky. It didn't seem very well integrated. I knew a little bit about Kundalini and about Carolyn. I'd watched her old DVDs, and then I did an 8-week beginner's course with her a couple of years previously at Tri Yoga in Chelsea. And I thought that from a spiritual perspective, Kundalini was much more interesting. It had much more potential for what I wanted to do than a more exclusively posture focused yoga like Hatha. So I really came expecting just to cherry pick a bit of the training that was useful for my pre-existing purposes. And instead I found something so much deeper and richer than I expected, which really made me reevaluate everything that I was doing. As Anya was saying, Carolyn offers you a whole bunch of different lenses through which you can view the practice. I've come to believe that Kundalini Global is nothing less than a technology for meeting God, whatever your version of the divine might be, the God of your understanding, as we say in AA. In my experience as a priest, as a spiritual director, being offered that invitation along with that freedom is quite rare. As Carolyn was saying at the start, the world of spirituality can be quite dogmatic and prescriptive. Lots of people are very keen to tell you what you should believe. And Kundalini Yoga has suffered from that particularly, but Carolyn doesn't do that at all. She's very good. She's very confident and skillful at inviting you into a space of divine encounter, holding the door to that space open for you, but then leaving you the freedom to enter into that space, have your own encounter with your version of the divine. And she's very playful. I think some people get terribly stuffy as soon as they start to talk about prayer and spirituality, but Karen is great at treating profound and holy things in a fun, playful, and occasionally mischievous kind of way. And if I'm going to spend $3.5 grand and spend 220 hours with a teacher, I want them to have a lively, intriguing, sometimes provocative personality. So I would say if you're interested in yoga as a spiritual practice, if you're interested in learning how to teach yoga as a spiritual practice in a way that is empowering and freeing for your clients and not just hitting them over the head with your own beliefs, then I'd say that's definitely a good reason to consider this training, whether you are a person of faith, whether you are a seeker or explorer, or if you're not at all sure what you believe. Very happy to answer any questions you might have later, but otherwise I think I'm going to pass the baton on to someone else.
John, thank you. Much respect. Thank you. That was very lovely. Very lovely. Thank you.
Thank you so much, John. And it is really so lovely to see you. We're going to move on to Lucy. Hi, Lucy.
Oh, hi. I wasn't in that order. Hi.
Yeah, sorry, Heather can't be here.
Okay, yeah. No, my name's Lucy, and I did the original training, the first training in 2020, and actually just being on here now has brought back some of the feelings that I had when I first started training, that I couldn't speak. Sometimes I just couldn't speak in Zoom. I couldn't speak in front of a lot of people. I can feel this sort of nervousness now. What I was really interested in the training was for myself, for learning, can we regulate, do we regulate, learning that our feelings are in our body, not in our head. We learn to work those feelings out. We learned about the vagus nerve, we learned the science. So I was really fascinated and truly learning those for myself. Never in a million years did I think I'd be teaching. The nerves now coming back. But yeah, I've now got regular classes in Bristol. They're busy. I really enjoy them. My clients come back regularly. This week's class, I had 18 people. I've only been doing it for 2 months. So the same people are coming back over and over again. And each week I enjoy my classes so much. I get so excited at the end of teaching Wednesdays and Thursdays, and at the end of Thursdays, I'm like just really excited planning my next class. I've got 2 workshops planned, 2 dates for workshops. So yeah, it was really one of the best things I've ever done. And in the beginning, the thought of me actually teaching or even talking to you guys like this online would be almost impossible. But yeah, so thank you, Carolyn. And thank you. Yeah, really one of the best things I've ever done. So yeah.
Lucy, as you know, I'm so proud of you. I remember how stubborn you were, and you wouldn't speak and you wouldn't teach and you wouldn't, and here we are. Fantastic. Brilliant. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. Brilliant.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lucy. It's lovely to see you. We move on to Ishal. Hi, Ishal.
Hello. Hi, everyone. I'm Ishal. I'm speaking not as a teacher, but I'm speaking as one of the lucky people that has joined KG, and I was one of the first in the first group. I basically got introduced to Kundalini Yoga years ago, and I loved it, and I carried on doing it with lots of different teachers, lots of different people in London, and it was very mystical, and all the teachers were quite angelic and sweet and soft and nice, but they weren't really giving that much information about what was happening. And it was only Carolyn's classes that I actually learned something, and when I did something, I understood what was happening and why we were doing it. And I decided to join the training because I wanted to learn the questions, the answers to the questions why. And it was one of the best decisions I've made, really, because it's very informative, and the anatomy you learn, the quantum field, and how to change the quantum field, and learning about divine masculine and feminine, which we don't really know that much about, and we actually have a lot of information that's kept from us for centuries, apparently. And all this learning and unlearning has helped me a lot, and I found myself in a place where I've constantly started kind of changing myself, and it is one of the most amazing trainings, and it's the kind of education that you would not be able to get anywhere else. And I am just telling everyone to definitely do it, and it's definitely something you would never regret.
Thank you, Ishal. All we got to do now is get you to do your exam. Force your hand. Thank you.
Thank you, Ishal. It's lovely to see you. Actually, up next is for me to speak. And before I do, I wanted to remind everybody to, let me spotlight myself. Hang on. Sorry, I was just so enjoying watching Ishal. Hi. I wanted to remind everyone that if you have questions, you can text them to me here, either privately or publicly, or at the end, you can put up your hand and I'll answer questions. What I wanted to share, or we'll all answer questions, you can have questions for anyone. What I wanted to share, people have touched on how the training changes your life in general, but it actually gives you a lot of courage to make changes in your life that support your well-being and your health and happiness, and that cannot be understated, the value of that. I did the training in the first cohort as well, and I did it because I'd been training with Carolyn, or going to class with Carolyn for some years, and really just loved it, and I wanted to understand the magic of why it worked so well, why it had become such a big part of my life. I didn't actually have the intention to teach. And then just getting to the end of the training, just recognizing that this needed to be shared, this needs to be shared, this needs to be spread, we need to spread the news, because it is life transforming, understanding how you can change yourself, change how you feel, and be really courageous and be more yourself, not be more Carolyn, not be more anyone else, be more yourself, which is a very, very cool thing to discover, and life's a lot more fun that way. And on that point, you get to work, we get to understand. So many of us have been through so much, and we come to yoga because we are stressed, anxious, we have traumatic histories, and you come to understand that that is actually your gold, and that you can use that, you can transform these stories into something that can make you an excellent teacher, because when people come to your class, you've been there, you know. You might not have actually been through what they have been through, but you can hold that space with compassion and generosity and kindness, because who know how to work with it. And that is something that I think the world needs very much right now. And the final thing that I wanted to share is the community that you join. As you've seen now, I mean, there are multiple cohorts that have done the training. We get to know each other. When people graduate, we all congratulate each other. We have a WhatsApp group. When people have questions or when people have birthdays, we are very much in each other's lives in a very supportive, loving, generous, and kind way. Carolyn is available as support for us if we ever need it, if we ever have questions. Carolyn's incredibly generous that way, but we're also there for each other. And we have events together. And I'm very proud to be a Kundalini Global teacher, but I'm also very proud to stand alongside a lot of, all of these people, very, very much so. So I wanted to say that. And we are going to move on now to Shadi, who is from Seva in Dubai. And he's going to be sharing with us what the experience will be like for those wanting to do the training in Dubai. It's lovely to all of you. Hi, Shadi.
Hello, Carrie, and thank you all, and hello, everybody. So great to be here, and after the great sound bites and the great input from everybody, perhaps this is a bit of a shift in the gear. I'm not going to be talking about my experience in KG firsthand. I am not a student of KG. However, I can say that many years ago, my very, very first Kundalini yoga class was following a YouTube video of Carolyn Cohen. It was the Detox Kriya. It was perhaps before the inception of Kundalini Global, but perhaps the idea was there for sure. And I can say that we had the great pleasure to host Carolyn in person back in 2019 at Seva, which used to be called Life in One back then. And it was a great foundation to build and continue our friendship and association with the great work that Carolyn does globally. And over the past year, we've been exchanging about the idea of hosting Kundalini Global in person with Carolyn in Dubai, which also was a major inspiration to expand the platform that we have here in Dubai, which consists of a wellness center, a yoga studio, a plant-based cafe in the heart of Dubai. And now we are actually teacher training programs and therapy training and whatnot. So the training that's going to be taking place in Dubai will be around mid-November, and it will be an intensive training going for 25 days straight, 10 days, and then followed by 5 days of practicum, followed by 10 days. And I can say from my firsthand experience of teacher trainings, I've done already a couple of teacher training programs, yoga teacher trainings, and I'm on a year-long therapy training at the moment. I can sense and have an impression what's important and what is not important, how to host the training along with our team, what's it like to be in such intimate groups, and what is required to have a successful foundation and a platform like Carolyn does. We also hold space for incredible teachers and facilitators to do their magic here in Dubai. And I would say the key word or the key term I can get today is radical inclusivity. We are pro-radical inclusivity, and we believe in disrupting the current yoga and yoga teacher training market and industry as we see it. And we've been multicolored for several years, which was not easy in a place like Dubai. However, we recently have been getting the momentum and the attention that is supporting the mission and the purpose that we are after here. So with that said, I can briefly say that we are in the heart of Dubai. The facility is very well equipped and very strategically located. We're a 5-minute walk from the beach. There are several accommodation options, and we are putting together on our website full details for anybody who's interested to attend the training from abroad to facilitate and make it easy for them to have a great experience beyond, before, after, and during the teacher training program. And I'm happy to take any questions if there are anything related to the training taking place in Dubai. Thank you.
Shadi, thank you. That was perfect. And so, Carrie, I didn't say thank you to you for what you said, which was great. So thank you. Sorry, it just went so quickly. The segue was so fast. So where are we up to, Carrie?
Well, I wondered if you wanted to speak a little bit, Carolyn, about the program supporting teachers.
Yeah, actually, that's a good question. So people do ask, because obviously, you know, why would one want to train to be a yoga teacher? There are so many yoga teachers. How do you get supported? It is the time for Kundalini Global. Of that, there is no question. We have a very good website. We're currently building a members area because we now have so many teachers who have certified. The website supports teachers with class listings. All teachers who have certified are invited to join the website. Their classes are listed. We have a Kundalini Global Instagram, which puts out weekly class listings. At the moment, we are doing quite well with that. Although if we get a lot more classes happening, we'll have to change how we do that. Each year we have a supervision camping event. Now, I understand that not everybody's in the UK, but we will have it again in August. We do a 4 or 5 day camping event, which is supervision and classes, and very much about helping teachers be, if they've done online trainings, really getting their head around being in person. But for me, supervision is key. Supervision is the ability to be self-reflective rather than self-obsessed. We're living in a time where everyone is completely self-obsessed. Self-reflection is a very different relationship to the self, and it's something that I encourage hugely. And then we also, one of the things I've offered ever since the training started, because from the very first module of the very first training, we had to go online because of what was going on with COVID. There will always be a free weekend, twice a year, a free weekend for anybody who can join to come to a free weekend. We have one for the teachers who've done the training only, to come and up their skills, get to do hands-on adjustments, and then there's supervision in person. That isn't a mixed event. It's not, you know, it's not with a Zoom camera and some people watching. I won't do that. But I also run supervision workshops. I do one-to-one supervision. And we're currently having a discussion at the moment, actually. We've just done a very big poll, a kind of questionnaire for all of the teachers who've participated in the trainings, looking at creating CPD, looking at creating more workshops, and I have pulled together a not compulsory level 2. There is no pressure to progress onto a level 2, but if you want to add more skills into your teacher training, into your teaching, then currently, actually starting tomorrow morning, I'm running a radically inclusive pregnancy yoga teacher training. And if you're a Kundalini Global teacher, that goes towards your level 2 hours. There's altered states, there's breath training so that you can teach more breath work. So there's quite a lot of various things that come in to support teachers. So I'm very, very keen on creating supportive teachers, supporting teachers. And what's very lovely is, as you can see here, how supportive the teachers are of what we're doing, because we're creating something new. It is global and it is happening. You know, people are getting classes, people are hosting, people are coming, you know, John's teaching in churches, other people are doing extraordinary things. It's cool. I would like to say a big thank you to everybody who's spoken. And I now would like to hand the floor over to Carrie to manage any questions that people have. You can ask an open question, or you can directly say to John or Fidan or Trish, this is my question, or to Shadi, you know, whatever, or me. So Carrie, I'm going to let you be the madam of ceremonies.
So before we do that, Fidana said, please, 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 can she say something lovely about Seva? And I thought, why not?
Thanks. I forgot to add when I was sharing. So I used to live in Dubai, and Seva was my favorite place to go because it's such a beautiful environment. It's such a beautiful space. Shadi and Edda just have created this really lovely, supportive place with a magical garden. And for the teacher training to be there is something special. So if you're thinking about doing it in person there, you're really in for a treat if you're not familiar with the space. So I just wanted to share that.
Yeah, that's lovely. Thank you. Thank you, Fidan. Very lovely. Thank you.
Yeah, I have to say I'm very jealous of everyone doing it. I know. I've been thinking about it. So you have just actually answered the question that somebody asked about what support is there for having a career in Kundalini Yoga, because it is a big investment, and we know it is, and that is why we support each other so much. So somebody has asked, is Kundalini Yoga also to do with immersion, i.e. headstands, handstands, or is it mainly breath work? Who would you like to answer that? Let's ask Carolyn.
Well, I'm happy to answer that. It's not immersion, it's inversions. Inversions is when you go upside down. Inversions, you can consider a triangle pose to be an inversion, and a shoulder stand, but we don't teach headstands. No, that's a whole other area of yoga that I don't get remotely involved in. The way that I teach Kundalini Global, and the way that I train teachers to teach Kundalini Global, is that you start by, the class opens by releasing the stress system. And then generally, if you have trained in the breath training, you have more access to more breaths that you're qualified to teach. But I would teach between three and 4 breaths at the beginning of a class, so that by the time you actually do the posture, your system is absolutely smooth and soft. Your whole stress system is released. So that the class will open with breath work and then go into posture. And generally for me, not for all the teachers, people can reevaluate what they're doing, I would end at the end of posture with a long relaxation. So the yoga part, depending on the length of the class, is anywhere from 40 minutes to an hour, depending on whether or not it's an hour class, an hour and a quarter, or an hour and a half. But there's lots of free Kundalini Global classes on my carolyncowan.com website. So lots of free classes. You can try classes and have a look and see what you feel. I do teach specifically breath classes, and people who are certified in the breath training can teach specifically breath classes, but generally the classes have both. Thank you, Carrie.
Thank you. So actually, I don't have any more typed questions. Does anybody want to put their hand up or type anything in? Does anybody have any
specific? Yeah, ask direct questions specifically at anybody.
You can wave your hand or actually put your hand up in Zoom.
Edith, was your hand up? Nope.
Sky?
Yeah, Jenna, go for it.
Okay.
Can I just ask a very functional, boring question? I just wondered with the Zoom teacher training, which I'm very much hoping to do this time, is there a deadline for which you need people to commit by, to register by, a date?
No, the only thing that I have as a commitment is that all payments for the training need to be made 2 weeks before the start of the training. So if you have financial issues, you can do a program where you pay into. I do run a scholarship program, but for this next 2 cohorts, the scholarship programs are completely full because people have been queuing. So I don't have any scholarship places available at the moment, but I can support, payments in drips. But when you sign the terms and conditions, you agree that all payments will be made in full 2 weeks before the training starts.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to Sky now. Sky, I'm going to ask to unmute you.
Hello. I was just putting it in the chat, but I'll ask you face to face. I just wanted a bit of information about how the online program is structured in terms of time, because I think that's certainly the one that I'm most interested in. So yeah, I'm just trying to figure out whether it's going to be possible for me with family commitments and all the rest of it. So yeah, just wanted to hear a bit more about that.
I'm going to ask Fidan to answer that. How is it, Fidan?
So in general, they are 10 to 12 hour days for 4 days in a row. And we usually start at, I think, because I was in a different time zone, but I think it was 7 a.m. UK time. And we have breaks. We have a breakfast, we have lunch breaks, tea breaks. So it's generally morning till evening. And it's great if you can commit to that full portal of being there, because it is like those 4 days in a row, it's a journey in itself. But yeah, we do have breaks. And sometimes I think there've been people in the past who've had to do family things and we catch each other up, and yeah, so it works out. Does that answer your question?
So that's 4 days in a row, and that's 4 days each month for
exactly
5 months.
Exactly. So one module is 4 days
Okay.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday, sorry, I don't know which days it was.
Friday,
Yeah.
Saturday, Sunday, Monday.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's
Once
great.
a month.
That's doable. Thank you.
The 12-hour days, every other day, there's 2 hours of supervision.
Okay.
So it's a 220-hour training, and within the 220 hours, you have 20 hours of supervision.
Perfect.
Plus, you have to write 5 essays and do an exam. And in between, all the way through between each month, you're teaching classes to each other. But right from the very first, I remember what was it like? Do you remember all of you on the teacher training where the very first time I taught you something, and then I said, right, now you're going to teach that, and everyone was going, oh my God. I was like, so you're teaching off the bat, which is, now I've told you, it's not a surprise. Carrie, over to you.
So we're going to move on to Claire. Claire, I'm going to ask you to unmute.
Thank you so much. Can I just say thank you to all of the speakers, because from off the bat, from Sarah Jane, I was like, I really wanted to resist this, but I'm so enthused as a result of hearing you all. So thank you. I was just wondering about the practicality. So I'm not yoga teacher trained. I'm just an enthusiast. So it's been really nice to hear people say that they too were enthusiasts. I would love to be able to teach. I guess the question that I have in my mind is, sometimes as an online yogi, if I'm in a pose or I'm doing something, it's okay for me. I'm thinking I may not be getting this quite right. But if I'm teaching, how do I make sure I am doing that right? And you speak of supervision, but how do I know? This is the perfectionist obviously speaking. I'm hearing this now, this defect. But how do I know that I am learning and therefore will teach correctly when all of the teaching is done remotely and online, is my question.
Can I ask April to answer that, perhaps? Not that April's a posture expert, but...
Yeah, of course. I mean, online, I think we learned so much, and obviously Carolyn can see us on camera as well, and we can help each other when we're teaching each other in classes. We gave each other a lot of feedback and shared a lot of wisdom. But like you say, and I mean, well done for being self-reflective there, because you don't have to be perfect. We learned to get comfortable, if there's something that we had restrictions with, sometimes we could have an injury or something really could be stopping us from doing a posture, is to be okay with asking someone to do that posture for us and to have someone represent that for us. And so there's no, you don't have to be perfect, but we do get, Karen does encourage us to work really hard and be able to have integrity with the posture. So you do your best, you get to know the posture and know it well enough to be able to explain it to someone else. And we have these offerings in person, like Carolyn has mentioned. So I'll be attending one next month, and I think that's really going to help with a few things if I'm going to be teaching in person, for example. But when it comes to online, I feel really well equipped to teach another online. And when it comes to being in person and doing hands-on adjustments, I'm going to be getting that support. So yeah, it's perfect.
Amazing. Thanks, April. Thank you.
Lovely. Thanks, April.
That's great. Thanks both. So now I have a question here. Does the course differ if you are planning to teach or if you are just a student? Who'd like to answer that?
I would say, I think the easiest way to think about that is, if there are people in the 3 cohorts that I've taught, there are at least 3 people who said they didn't want to teach, and they've signed up, they've taken the manual, and they've watched the videos. Great, because everything's recorded and all the videos are uploaded. And there are other people who joined who said they didn't want to teach, and then they have ended up becoming teachers. I think if you don't want to teach, you don't do the essays. You don't have to join in the practicums. There's endless practicums all month. There's timetables where you're joining in, teaching each other, running classes between yourselves. And also because of the way that you're insured, and certainly if you're insured by Yoga Alliance in England or in America, you're covered to be able to teach your friends and to run classes as long as you're not charging money at that point. So you're going straight into teaching from very early on. So there's a lot of support for people who want to teach, But even if you don't want to teach, you find yourself having experiences. And perhaps Camilla, would you like to say something about that, where you weren't really planning to teach, were you? You just kind of joined.
No, I hadn't planned to teach at all, and now I am, and I do enjoy it. And it's really changed how I think about others and myself. It's well worth doing. You'd be surprised. I may be the last person to write an essay, but I'll get there eventually.
Yeah. So what we're talking about is that you might think you joined not to want to teach, but just to have the experience because you love yoga. But over the process of it, you've actually found yourself thinking, actually, this is quite interesting. I didn't think I could do this, and I can. So you could go both ways. Thank you, Camilla. I don't know if that really answered your question very clearly, but it depends on what you want, you know, from it.
Thank you. Thanks both. So one question here. Hello, is the course certified by the International Kundalini Yoga Organization, Yogi Bhajans? Is it based on the same teachings as he is the founder, as per my knowledge?
He's the founder of what? He's not the founder of Kundalini Yoga. So Kundalini Yoga has existed for thousands of years before Yogi Bhajan. Yogi Bhajan, Yogi Bhajan's, he obviously is dead, but he started something called the Kundalini Research Institute, and he started 3HO. This is not a Kundalini Yoga as taught by Yogi Bhajan teacher training. This does not use Yogi Bhajan series. This does not use Yogi Bhajan's teachings at all. This is Kundalini Global. It's completely different. This manual is not a reworking of the KRI manual. I didn't even use the KRI manual as a basis. I started by making a mind map that looked like wisteria. There were so many things, so many essays that I had to write. This took me 2 years to write. Table of contents, it starts with esoterics. What is the Kundalini? What is spirituality? Introduction to cults of thoughts, transcendence, hell, the esoterics of the organs of the body, the pineal gland. I mean, there is nothing that's related. It's not anything to do with Kundalini Yoga as taught by Yogi Bhajan, which is referred to as KYATB. No, Kundalini Global is a total rewrite. And actually, Trish could attest perhaps to that, because Trish comes from the same background as I. So maybe at this point, Trish, you could say something.
Yeah, I mean, it's Yogi Bhajan has been proven to be a rapist. So the lineage of Kundalini Yoga as taught by Yogi Bhajan is something that's very different to Kundalini Global. And the sort of the great cover-up of that is still kind of triggering for me, and also for, I guess, thousands of Kundalini Yoga teachers who've stopped teaching. So I'd look into that a little bit deeper if you were considering doing that kind of training, and really the integrity behind it.
It makes me want to, if you're happy, Trish, if I bring up, do you remember some of the early conversations that we had when you said, how about opening up a short course to help teachers move over from being a Kundalini Yoga teacher as taught by Yogi Bhajan across to being a Kundalini Global teacher? That was an early conversation. And then you found in the training that it was so interesting to divest yourself of so many thought processes that were very embedded through the original training. Can you say something about that?
Sure. I mean, I think that there was quite a big scrambling when these allegations came to light, and I guess part of the, by the potency of the internet, I guess there was this big cover-up that had been going on, and there were many people who were complicit in this big cover-up, and then there was a kind of sort of screeching halt to Kundalini Yoga. And then so many teacher trainers have kind of, Tipex Yogi Bhajan out of the training manual and continued on. Whereas this is a really different offering. It's different on so many levels because, it's open to all creeds, all faiths, non-faiths, all religions. And, there seems to be this kind of pushing this Yogi Bhajan story under the carpet, and that's a real shame. And you know, there are still many teachers who, many people in the Kundalini global community, in the Kundalini yoga community, not just teachers, who are really still suffering. And I think that it's important that we, you know, recognize the difference between what's on offer here and what's on offer in a traditional Kundalini yoga as taught by Yogi Bhajan training, or a version of same with the Yogi Bhajan bit just erased.
Lovely. Thank you, Trish. So yes, what Trish is referring to, if you haven't read the book Premka, A Bird in a Gilded Cage, is part of the whole, it's a big, you know, it's a big investigation that's going on. And unfortunately, what's very sad about the investigation, it was that it was kept in-house within KRI. And supposedly at this point, yes, there are over 300 cases of sexual assault and 4 rapes. But a lot of yoga teachers, as taught by Yogi Bhajan, will say there are only 4 rapes. So no, this isn't that. It's nothing to do with it on any level at all. I mean, I really promise you nothing is to do with it. So it's like a rework. It's a whole other thing. You can do research into Kundalini yoga. Yogi Bhajan appropriated some information and applied it to Sikhism. This has got nothing to do with that. But very respectful of Sikhism, but not Neo-Sikhism. I'm not adhering to any kind of Neo-Sikhism, which is a very contentious, and it's a huge area of contention. I've got a private question here, which says, I work full-time and I'm wondering how many weeks I'll need to fully commit to complete level 1 teacher training. Does it have to be done intensively over a short amount of time, or can I stagger it over a few months? The question isn't 100% clear. You can't join more than one teacher training. So if you join a teacher training, you join that run of teacher training. You do the 5 modules, 4 days per module, unless you come to Dubai. There's no pressure on you for when you need to do the essays or for when you need to complete the exam. That is entirely up to you. We're happy to offer you any support that we can offer you, but there's no pressure to complete everything in a certain amount of time. But we will be there supporting you and pushing you, not pushing you, egging you on. And actually, I forgot to say that how many WhatsApp groups do we have? We have a book club, we have a posture group, we have the certified trainers group, we have everybody else who's in the other groups. Each teaching cohort has its own WhatsApp group. So there's always supportive groups and communication and all of that stuff. So you have a lot of support in getting yourself to the other end of it, but it doesn't have to be done in a specific amount of time. I didn't mean to take over from the lovely Madam Carrie. So Carrie, why don't you come back to whatever else is going on? We've got a couple of hands up, so I'll let Carrie
Alice
organize that.
Key's hand is up. I'm going to ask you to unmute, Alice.
So let's make this the last 5 minutes.
Hi everyone, and thanks Carolyn and all the speakers for joining and organizing this. I've just got a question regarding the certification specifically, and regarding the 5 essays that are required to receive the certification. So I was just wondering, I'm like remembering just from the university times all the 2,200 words that I had to write, and I'm getting a little bit like nervous thinking about that. So I was wondering, like, how are they assessed specifically? Who reads them? Is it you, Carolyn? And like, what's the process around it specifically? Can you fail at the essays? So
John, could you answer the essay question? I will just say one thing, which is that I did have somebody who was quite feisty on one of the trainings, who decided they didn't want to do any essays, and so they wrote me an essay that said "fuck you, fuck you, fuck you," 2,000 times. Okay, that's very nice. No problem. Could you now give me an essay that actually is what you want to say? And they are working towards certification. You don't have to do any of it, but you won't certify. So John, carry on.
If you're smart, you'll do the essays as you go along rather than leaving them all till the end. That is the sensible thing to do. But I mean, really, they're a chance for you to explore the things that you're interested in and to write about them. It's not like doing essays at university. I think I never got an essay back, I don't know, correcting my grammar or my references, or it's more kind of find, so if you're interested in exploring the history of Kundalini yoga and where Yogi Bhajan fits into that, go and read a bunch of stuff, go and watch the videos and then write your thoughts about it. I think I started out, because I'm an academic by background, writing things that are quite academic. I think my first couple, and then I ditched that, and I ended up, I wrote one of my assignments was just writing out my story in light of what Carolyn had taught us about, you know, finding the gold in your story. They became kind of less academic as I went on and just more interesting. So I think just see them as a chance to take a deep dive into the things that you become interested in the training, rather than thinking this is some terrible academic burden. That wasn't my experience at all.
Yeah, there's only one essay that you have to write, which is about the roots of yoga, because for me, it's essential that you understand the lineage that you have potentially decided to take on and do differently, because that's what we're doing. We're looking at a very, very ancient tradition, and we can be accused of cultural appropriation, but I do need everybody to really look into the roots of yoga so that you can stand up and say, and we're doing this slightly differently, but we do understand the roots of yoga. So that is the first essay. From there, you have 4 essays of your choice. My invitation is, maybe don't write about the chakras. Everybody writes about the fucking chakras. So don't write an essay about the chakras. But actually what's fabulous is that, you know, I read all the essays. So that's and I mark all the exams as well. And it's amazing to see what people write. I mean, some people have, you know, they discover a voice that is so beautiful. They write about things that they had no idea that they were interested in, and it's fascinating. I mean, I read things that utterly fascinate me, and the insight into the people who write the essays that I get is extraordinary. I mean, and then some essays, you know, people agree to share, they then go on to use them as weblogs. So they become, when Carrie was talking about using your gold, and John's mentioning exactly the same thing, that's an aspect of your essay. I mean, I'm an ex-drug addict and alcoholic, hence my fascination in trauma, addiction, the vagus nerve, and that's informed what I do. And so I'm really interested in the gold. So therefore, you know, I was talking this morning with someone about an essay that someone wrote on the pineal gland. I mean, it's just heaven. You know, it's such a lovely thing to read. You know, really, it's a stunning thing. The essays are wonderful. And then, of course, you can't certify without having done all 5 essays. So even if you get the exam at the end of the teacher training, if you haven't done the 5 essays, you can't certify. You have to do the exam as well. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does. Thank you so much. And yeah, I think I just realized I've heard, I think someone mentioned earlier as well that you sort of find your voice as well. And I think that probably also is one of the ways, I imagine, to finding that voice, and you finding those little things that interest you and putting those in words. And then
I think that exactly what you're saying is a testament to how everybody here, I've just randomly picked XYZ person, and people have just happily stood up and stood in and spoken with confidence. And I think that's a real testament to what they've found within themselves from the teacher training. What's the exam? The exam is an exam at the end. You're invited to do, I think I've got at least 85 questions. It generally ends up being about 75 pages long. It's an exam, and it's based on everything that you've been taught. It's not an exam that's a research exam. It's based on what you've been taught. Open book, it's up to you. You don't do it in person. Exactly. So Carrie, should we ask Julie to be the last person?
Yes, and then there are a couple of questions that have been typed that I think are quite key. So we'll try to get to them quickly. Julie, I've asked to unmute you.
Sorry, I'll be really quick. I'm just wanted to say I'm totally beyond excited to get started on this course. And I've been trying for the last year or so various Kundalini Global Teachers classes, and they've all been amazing in different ways. And I feel like I've learned so much already. So it just feels like the next step. I'm kind of beyond excited about it. But can I just ask some practical questions, please? Is there a reading list that we might get beforehand? And when do we get the manual? And my final thing is, how many people are you expecting on the online training?
So the reading list comes when you sign up. Not if you signed up today, you wouldn't get the reading list for, you'll get the reading list about 2 weeks before the training starts, because you don't need to pre-read. You'll get the manual, you'll only get, there are no PDFs of the manual, you only get the manual. So even if you're living in Dubai or Azerbaijan, it gets posted to you. So that's a bit of a drama. But they tend to all get there in the end. So I don't give out PDFs because I wrote this and I'm bored of yoga teachers not respecting what people do and sharing PDFs all over the place. So, and what was the third question?
How many people are you expecting?
I don't know. Each cohort has had a different number. I think in person, I'd be happy to do up to 60, but I think a cohort that would be online, I wouldn't go over 40, but the last round was 20, but each one's been different.
Thank you.
That's a pleasure. So Carrie, you said you had
somebody was asking about if 25 days is going to be enough.
Yes, of course it's going to be enough, because you've got the 10 days each side and the 5 days of the you've got 5 days practical. You'll be then asked to carry on and do more practicums after the teacher training. So you'll stay in cohort and keep on teaching, but then you'll also be doing the essays afterwards and the exam afterwards. So where John said do the essay as you go through, on a Zoom teacher training, that's essential. But when you're in person, you'll be doing the essays afterwards. But you can be accumulating information for your essays while you're there. The question here, so is that your questions? Because I've got two here as well that I'm sure you can see, Carrie.
No, I have two. I've got others.
Okay, go on.
Quite a good question. That is someone who is already a Hatha yoga teacher. And is it okay to continue teaching Hatha yoga alongside Kundalini Global classes?
Of course it is. It's lovely. Why not? Of course it is. How fantastic. No, of course. I mean, there are people who teach yin and Hatha, and yeah, no problem. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And then we have some scheduling questions, like people saying, well, I have a school run. Is that going to be a challenge? Can I be a bit late sometimes? And
you can be a bit late sometimes. Classes are recorded. The invitation is that you should be able to attend 85% of the course on camera, with cameras on.
And on that, is the 20 hours of supervision included in that 220? And does that enter into the 85%?
Yes, the supervision is mandatory, and it is included in the 85%, yes.
Okay, those were the main questions that I had left. Anything written here that you want to ask?
Sarah asks, what differs Kundalini meditation from other kinds of meditation? My darling, that's a question that I could take at least a day on. That is a huge question. I mean, there's all sorts of different types of meditation, and within Kundalini Global, there are various different types of meditation, and your manual will also include a large amount of prayers as well. We have, the manual includes posture. So you have this is a theory manual that I have here, but there's also a practicum manual, which has all the yoga series, prayers, meditations, and breath work. But the meditations vary. I mean, there's all sorts of different things, and there's lots of different ways of meditating. I don't know what you know about meditation, but I don't feel that I have the time right now to explain meditation. So, but I'm not teaching Kundalini yoga as taught by Yogi Bhajan, that I can tell you. And then how many people will be in the, I think we answered that. Shadi, you know, you can always ask Shadi. At this point, I think there's a few bookings for Dubai, but there's, you know, it's in November, so there's no, you know, they're building a specific, currently in the process of building a specific space for the teacher training. So for all the teacher trainings that they're running. Is that right, Shadi? Do you want to add anything in there?
That's right. That's absolutely right. There is no cap at the moment planned, but we're aiming at around 60 students, like Carolyn just mentioned. Now, the tendency in Dubai that even though we already have paid bookings from now, that people wait last minute, and then all of a sudden there's a lot of conflicts, a lot of fights, a lot of chase for the last seats, which is something that we have seen happening over and over and over. So I believe the terms and conditions for the booking are very clear on Kundalini Global website. And we are happy to take any inquiries directly on where we are with the bookings and whatnot. If Claire, you have any plans to postpone the decision until you are clear and solid on that.
Lovely, thank you, Shadi. Stephanie's asked if there's a lot of posture teaching. It's a yoga teacher training. Of course, there's a lot of posture teaching. And there's a lot of posture teaching on each episode, and there's a lot of posture teaching in the manual, and you learn about the esoterics of postures, you learn about the muscularization of postures, you learn about the hormonal aspect of postures. Do you know something? I think you've all been amazing. I'm so proud of the teachers for just stepping up, stepping in. It's been great. Thank you so much. And amazing that you've all stayed and listened. So I'm going to end and thank you. We're all going to end. So let's close a Kundalini Global class, which is to bring your hands either into prayer pose or crossed on your chest. I know I'm not doing a class, but just taking a moment. So landing into yourself or your higher self and just being aware of how lovely to be able to come together. And I'm so proud of the teachers and people who spoke here. So thank you. Inhaling and bowing forward just to that collective energy. What a great cohort we have created in a community. Inhaling up. Bowing forward to whatever help we can assist you. If you have questions, further questions, please do feel free to ask. Inhaling up. Bowing forward to plans and projects and adventures in challenging times. Really well done and thank you. Please.